Okay, hello everybody. What's up? Thanks for tuning in. It's good to see everybody. Like this. This is week number 7 of quarantine school. So here we go. We've got 2 quick things that we want to address. The first is how last week's work is going to impact this week's work. Second thing we're going to do is just talk about the calendar, and then we'll be out of here. So let's do it. Last week we took some time to read this piece by John McWhorter called "The Virtue Signalers Won't Change the World." This is a piece that talks about activism and how sometimes activism can be seen as really a representation of an individual person instead of a communal effort toward justice or something like that. Me personally, as a reader, I find that reading to be kind of disagreeable. That's kind of my personal take on it. But I think it's important because it has to do with representation. It has to do with the power of collective action and how sometimes what that looks like can be taken and twisted into something else that it's not. And that's very much what we want to continue thinking about this week and for the next 3 weeks as we work to wrap up our course. So hopefully by now we've had a chance to complete our Unit 3 essay. We've turned it into turnitin.com, and we want to continue thinking about intersections of race, class, and gender. We want to think about the Virtue Signalers essay as we get into this, our very last unit. Our final unit we call the work of culture and the culture of work. We want to come full circle and go all the way back to the beginning of our course when we spent some time thinking about Marx, exploitation, about labor, about power, and how to get it if you don't have it, how to combat exploitation. And when we return to some of these big questions and we think about what capitalism looks like in our world today, we sometimes see people refer to our current moment as late capitalism. Another way that scholars have referred to this moment is postmodernism. Now, there's a guy, I think he might be retired now, but his name is Frederick Jameson, and he wrote a very famous book on this where he talks about postmodernism, or the culture of late capitalism. And he provides a lot of really interesting ideas about how to see the world today, or how people see the world today versus how they saw it 50 or 100 years ago, or 500 years ago, or 1,000 years ago. So where we begin with today's class is we want to get a handle just on this term, which is a tricky term, and it involves a lot of complicated ideas. From there, we're going to apply that idea to some pretty interesting texts. Most of these texts are videos, they're short videos, and they're also kind of jokey or comedic. So I urge you to check them out, have a laugh, and see if you can make some of these bigger connections to the theory that we're talking about. So that's what last week was all about and how it feeds into this week. What I'd like to do now is jump into the calendar. Let's do it. Okay, so for today, you're going to read the postmodernism section of the Theory Toolbox. If you don't have your copy of Theory Toolbox, you can just read it online, and that's cool. We posted a PDF on the website. This is page 125 through 131. Now, postmodernism is a really complicated idea. Theory Toolbox, love Theory Toolbox, but there's a little more to it than what we get in that textbook. So, in true Mr. Duffy fashion, I have created the most overkill handout that helps to give you a little more of a foundation in what this idea is and how it came from a number of other perspectives. We call this the key, this actually isn't the key figures, it's called the Paradigm History handout. So I'd like you to read that entire handout. Now, when you're done reading the handout and reading Theory Toolbox, what you're going to do is go to the Google Doc and you're going to post in your own words a definition of postmodernism. Again, your own words. This is very important. You're going to also talk about a description of its advantages and limitations. I will also participate in this discussion, so I'll just kind of chime in and type in some stuff in a different font color, or a different text color, and that way we can kind of see where we're going in the Google Doc. So that's Monday's work. Theory Toolbox, overkill handout, post your definition, and we'll move the conversation to the Google Doc. For Wednesday's class, we're going to be watching several videos and reading a few short articles. The first one is called America's First Postmodern President. I think this one was from The Atlantic. It's linked on the website, so you can check that out. And then you're going to watch a short video called How the Apprentice Manufactured Trump. This is a video that talks a little bit about how this guy who is a reality TV star uses his celebrity and translates it into actual political power. I think that's pretty interesting. And then the last thing that you're going to watch, which this is my like all-time favorite, it is Stranger Than Fiction, is about a presidential campaign for a man named Mike Gravel. Mike Gravel, I don't know if you know him, was an Alaska senator for a number of years, and he has run for president several times under a very progressive platform. Obviously, he's never won, but some of his ideas are, very progressive. In the 2016 election, he decided that he was going to employ a number of teenagers who are younger than probably all of you, or maybe around your age, is 16 or 17, to be his campaign staff and run his campaign, and pretend to be him on social media. That's the big thing. So Mike Gravel has a Twitter account. Mike Gravel is on Snapchat. He's interacting with other people. He's trolling other politicians, but it's not actually him, even though it's a verified Twitter account, because he gave all of his social media accounts to these kids. What happens next is pretty hilarious. So check that video out. What we're seeing right now is something that is an example of postmodernism and how it plays into the political sphere. In addition to this, you're also going to be reading Thomas Frank's Why Johnny Can't Dissent. This is one of my all-time favorite readings of the entire year, and it's about punk rock, punk culture, and cultural resistance. I don't know if this shows up on your radar anymore, but this was a really big deal when I was in high school, and I think maybe a few generations before as well. But for people who really had an antagonistic relationship with mass culture, with their school, their teachers, their parents, oftentimes they would dress in a certain way, style their hair in a certain way, have piercings and tattoos to signal that they were interested in a different type of lifestyle, that they wanted to reject mass culture and commercial culture and do something themselves on their own terms. Punk culture and punk music went hand in hand, and it was something that was seen as an act of rebellion of sorts. Nowadays, I don't know that that's really true, mostly because anything that would suggest that you were culturally rebellious is available at the store. It's like you can go to the mall and buy that stuff instead of like having to make it yourself or ask around through maybe back channels, underground networks of people who made this stuff in their house or something. So Thomas Frank writes this piece called Why Johnny Can't Dissent, and it's, in a nutshell, about the changing cultural climate of our moment, where what used to be seen as culturally resistant is now just absorbed as a cultural product. So you're going to be reading this piece as well. Okay. After you read through all this stuff, you're going to be responding to the following prompts in the Google Doc. Number 1, what is Thomas Frank's claim in Why Johnny Can't Dissent? 2, do you think it still holds true today? You're all young people, you are all culturally plugged in. Is what he's saying still true, even though this was written, I don't know, probably 25 years ago now? Number 3, how did today's other texts reinforce, complicate, or critique what Frank is saying? And you want to be specific. So place these sources in conversation. And lastly, you want to find a passage from any of today's readings, that includes the videos if you want to talk about a scene from any of the videos, and something that resonated with you, and then just explain why it resonated with you. So that's it. There are a lot of smaller tasks this week, but I think they're incredibly important, and postmodernism is a concept that will certainly serve you well into college, wherever you go, whatever conversations you have with your professors. This is a term that will come up. Knowing what this is and how to use it correctly is going to give you a real edge in your literature seminars, your social science seminars, and even just being like, a cool person on campus. So when that happens, I want you to shoot me an email, and you can say, Mr. Duffy, we talked about postmodernism today, and I was like slaying it in class. It's going to happen. When it does, contact me. Okay, so we talked a little bit about last week and how it feeds into this week's work. We talked about a lot of the exciting stuff that we're going to do this week. Be on the lookout for new project instructions, which are going to come your way probably in a few days. And of course, if you have any other questions or concerns, post them to the group chat, or you can reach out to me directly. Until we see each other again, be good to yourself, be good to everybody else, and we'll see you in the next one. Bye.